This is gonna be very spoiler filled, by the way, so click off if you don't want to be spoiled by the greatest masterpiece in writing known to man. Omniscient Reader. Not really the clearest timeline, so I'm gonna fix that today. I have 3 colors, so we are doing this art style. Now I'm also American, so I have no idea how to pronounce the names properly, so I'm going to guess. Forgive me. I don't really care. Blue is for Kim Doksha, the stupid ugly squid. Red for Yu Jun-yook, sunfish bastard. And green, Han Soo-yoon, rat. They also be asking, Crabman, why do you have a black marker? Because anytime I mention these people and it's in black writing, I'm not talking about these people, I'm talking about alternative version of them. So funny, Mandela Cowboy. That's gonna get very important really fast. Because we start our first canon event, starts when we're on the train. I fucking lied, you moron! I said this is spoiler filled, we're getting into the backstory first. Born. We start the path. Kim Doksha being born. As well as wrong color, Han Soo-yoon being born. Kim Doksha exists, and he's just chilling. He arcs around. Starting off with the most important event in young Kim Doksha's life. Murdering his father. Kim Doksha just gets taken and sent off. And he's kind of just chilling around a bit, gets bullied. Eventually he ends up killing himself. Trying to kill himself. While this is happening, what a cliffhanger. Already in the prequel. You know, Han Soo-yoon has also been chilling out. Growing up, around the same age. I think she's slightly younger. She's growing up. But also, because we're talking about a story, there is a, let me draw a little portal here. Portal. A second Han Soo-yoon appears and conjoins with the first. So whenever the first goes to sleep, the second one wakes up and gets to work. What's that work? I'll say later. Now the reason why I didn't use the black marker for the second Han Soo-yoon, even though I said I would, is because they're technically the same person throughout the entire thing. Nothing ever is different. They start as the same person and then they end as the same person. Also, she comes along with a new character, which no one knows about unless they read the book. The Dokubi King, who, again, spoilers, is the fourth wall. Treats Doksha, young Doksha, as God. I'll get to that when I get to that. Anyway, following the convergence of the Han Soo-yoon's day version, the younger, she grows up, begins writing, is a very good writer, and she begins to write a bit. She just starts writing during the daytime, and she writes the fucking shitty knockoff of a book that hasn't been written yet, canonically. And so getting back to it, Doksha is in the hospital. Fuck. He is gone. He's slurped away. Han Soo-yoon sleep version, the beta version, realize is, where's the writer of 3 Ways to Survive in a Ruined World? Who's gonna write that book? Damn. She's gotta write it. Because if she doesn't write it, then all the events of the story don't happen. Are you confused what the events are yet? I sure hope so, because that's the entire this is like the 520th chapter I'm describing what's happening right now. Ignoring all the previous exposition. Beta Hansuyuk is writing Ways of Survival, while her prime version is writing the plagiarized version of Ways of Survival. I forget what it's called. I'm not looking it up. Doksha wakes up and he sees the book, Ways to Survive in a Ruined World. So he begins reading it. Kim Doksha begins reading this throughout his entire life. When his mother goes to prison, when he gets kicked out of fucking everywhere, when he goes in the army, and even when he is at work, especially when he's on a certain funny train ride. Now this is going to sound confusing, because it's going to be, because it's not really well explained. Also, it could be stupid. But going back a bit, I know, when he was a kid and he was first reading it, that split off to another timeline. And that was called the Oldest Dreamer timeline. And so now the kid who split off is the Oldest Dreamer, who he views the world, so thus it exists. If he didn't read it, all of this wouldn't exist, because why would it? He's the reader. So basically the entire series is in his own imagination. And then I'll use the black one. And then a version of Yoon Jun-yuk comes here and kidnaps him and leaves, and we never see them again. And also, adult Doksha from like far later on also comes with him to kill himself. I get it. Kim Doksha tries to die a lot, and yeah, he's a bastard. Anyway, now that we're on a funny train car, he meets one of his previous business associates. Whatever her fucking name is. Her. They worked at the same company, and they were chilling. I don't have a marker for any of the side characters. I really don't care. 7 o'clock that day, a certain funny event happens in the world. Ignore the train car incident. A certain funny event happens on the final day of the airing of Ways to Survival. The world fucking ends. And it's done. We're done. That's the story. Now we actually get into the story proper. The world ends. Ways of Survival. The book that becomes real, written by Beta Hansuyuk, becomes real. Why? I don't. Oldest Dreamer. Now we get good stuff. Because canonically, no before, as soon as the world ends, the protagonist appears. Yoon Jun-yuk appears. I know it's very small. I don't care. He appears. And not like, oh, he was born. No, he quite literally popped into existence that very second. And then the world shifts into the book. Now you may be asking, was the main character transported into the book? Or was the book superimposed onto the world? The second option. There's only a few people that also got that weren't like overwritten, were people who had outside influence by Han So-yoon and Kim Doksha by extension. So there are the prophets, that exist. I will mark them right here. The prophets. They don't go very far. And then there is a Yusaga and the child. The bug boy. I will mark him with nothing. So this is all well and good. They're chilling. They have to kill another person in this world. This is just to start out. So you know, the story progresses. I'm not going to explain to you the entire story due to you can just read it. Read it. It's really good, genuinely. Kim Doksha and fucking Christ, it's so difficult having two markers. And Yujunyuk meet. It's all cool, all nice, and then Kim Doksha gets thrown into the mouth of a giant serpent, making a deal with an evil being, the Dokubi. He leaves. He gets out of the mouth and does a few more things. He eventually meets up with Yujunyuk. They do a few quests together, as in Yujunyuk gets depressed for the 8th time this run. Oh, I should probably also mention, Yujunyuk has the ability that every time he dies, he comes back. So technically, fuck, I forgot to mention this. Technically, he's in his 3rd run. Fuck. So, the 3 technically were on his 3rd run, but by technicality, we're on his 4th. Technically, we're on his 1,834th run. Possibly. Not quite explained. So, on the 0th run, the very first one, I will write it on this side. You have Yujunyuk. He's chilling, having a good time. He got on that train one day, and he's gonna go find his parents, go find his family. He has a sister? I always forget that that's a canon thing. Go find his parents. He's gonna have an amazing esports career. And then the world fucking ends. And he's scared. And he receives a message, from a funny, unknown being to say, hey, do this. And he does it. First, he's paranoid, because he's like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. But he learns to rely on the hints from this mysterious blue being. He gets the end. He actually wins? Like, there is 100... Holy shit. So the scenarios exist to feed something. It just exists. There's just a thing. There's 100 of them that they get through and they win. And on his first try, with the help of Mr. Blue Man here, Yujunyuk actually wins. Like, he gets through it, has like the perfect prime ending. And so he's talking with Mr. Blue Man via like indirect messages. He's like, I'm gonna die soon, because he's getting old at this point. How can I see you? They're talking, very emotional scene. I'm not gonna rehash it because my acting skills would far superior anything else. But basically ends up with Yujunyuk killing himself and being given the stigma of regression from the oldest dream. Because the oldest dreamer, now becomes Yujunyuk's sponsor. Powerful beings in their world can sponsor lesser powerful beings so they can survive a little better. Anyway, Yujunyuk gets sponsored by the oldest dream. And then he kills himself. And given that, the oldest dream makes sure he forgot everything except for how the original 0th run happened in the book. I know, a little weird. Where now that we're on our wrong mark, on this bad marker, on the 2nd run, which technically now the 1st run, Yujunyuk believes that the 0th run, the 1st one, happened entirely differently. where he met all these people and it went bad, and now he hates them all, and that leads him to fucking into black marker, die again, because now he's not getting any help. So he's doing it all on his own, completely first try essentially. Gets up, dies again, blah, 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 until we get to here. Let me just erase this because it's so much easier. Until we get to Hanso-young Beta. Wonder where she went? Well, she went with the help of an outer god. She went to another universe. The 1863rd timeline. And she basically is doing what Kim Doksha's doing in our prime timeline, if you remember back. She is doing it the way she wants to do. She's hitting all the key points, winning, she's gaming. She's essentially Kim Doksha Part 2. But to get to the end of the scenarios, I'll mark it right there. And there's only a few more left. But she needs to complete a contract with that outer god, killing Yujunyuk. Not regressing him, a permanent death. No more regressions. Because whenever Yujunyuk regresses, he leaves the world behind and creates an entirely new one. That's how powerful these fucking characters are. They're both here. And they're at the end. And Yujunyuk is basically like agreed with Hanso-young, like, yeah, I'm willing to die permanently as long as these, like, as long as, because he's, I'm fucking exploding. Because he's gone through this much, he's fucking sad. He's been through a lot of bad shit. So if he's like, hey, Hanso-young, you got this. I'm done. If you can win it, sure. It wins. Fuck it. Kim Doksha, let me just draw another portal here, randomly appears, given the same outer god effect of killing Yujunyuk. He gets taken in the future, he gets taken to this timeline, and has to kill Yujunyuk. Kim Doksha has an idea. He made him eat dirt. And then he somehow inspired to develop a special skill called the author skill to allow him to split into two different people. Listen to two different Yujunyuks. And then they fight each other. One is the entire like ambition to keep going on, and one's all of his depression. And so the depression one dies and leaves like a permanent death. Meaning they both won. And then, Hanso-young continues his timeline, ends, and then you'll see. And then funny things happen to these characters. These were important. The funny Hanso-young Beta completes the game, meets the Dokubi King, goes back in time, and starts it again. Yujunyuk, the good one, the prime, all of his happiness, regresses again into the 1864th timeline, while the other one fucking dies. And Kim Doksha goes back to his timeline, so let me just back to our canon timeline, because he completed the task, but it's 3 years later. Now ignore all of that, because we're back here in the prime timeline, the 1864th timeline, where the prime Yujunyuk reappears right here with no memories of all his timelines except for the first three. Technically the fourth, but also the third, because he doesn't remember the first because that was erased. But he does remember the first, but it's a false one. And they're chilling. Hanso-young, between Kim Doksha meeting up with Yujunyuk and they get depressed. Well, Yuji no gets depressed. They're chilling. Continue down the path. They hear about the prophets, who their leader, Han Soo-young, split herself back into two people. Split her memories down 50-50, meaning they're both technically the same person. And one, Han Soo-young Alpha, I'll call her, or just Han Soo-young for short, continues down the path and meets our protagonists as the Master Prophet. While the Beta one talks to an outer god and goes back in time to the 1863rd timeline. Oh wow! It's a fucking time loop! That's not the first one. So, now we have the Kim Do-sha's group, a few side characters, Yuji Nuke's group with a few side characters, and then Han Soo-young with her own, the Prophets. So Han Soo-young kills all the Prophets. Yeah, they're gone. I was, into that. Yeah, they only lasted like a few chapters. They're just, they just continue down the path for the most part. Kim Do-sha dies a few times. Han Soo-young and all the rest become friends, allies. It's kind of confusing. A few dimension hops happen. Then Kim Do-sha dies again, like the 6th time. We don't really care, but he does whatever. I'll mark this off as a Kim Do-sha dies moment. He has developed a few anti-death measures. A few resurrections. This is the wrong marker. A few resurrections, you may say. So he dies, and then he gets brought back. But this time, because he's so cool and epic, he's now a constellation. What's a constellation? Fuck you for asking questions. This is my story time. Stop interrupting. Now at this point, Kim Do-sha has a prophecy told about him. That he's going to die again. And in order to counter that, this death, a true permanent death, he dies again. And then he goes into the trash. Before all this though, one of his side missions was he had to fight someone from the 42nd timeline. So, or the 41st, I forget. One of those timelines. He fought them, killed them basically, and got their soul. Now he has that too in his possession. And also he put into a body, but that's not right now. This is also just a side character plot, who fucking cares? So, Kim Do-sha is now dead and in the trash, but he's alive and in the demon world. So he goes and starts a revolution in the demon world in one of the areas. But he's using a different name. He's using Yuji Nuke's name. And so he goes and he does a revolution. Yuji Nuke hears his name is being cursed in the demon world. So he goes to the demon world, causes the revolution under Kim Do-sha's name. And things get very confusing. But anyway, they do all this stuff. Blah blah blah. They save the city. They reconjoin. They do all this stuff. And Kim Do-sha sees that the way he's reading Ways of Survival, that was still on his phone, it's updating. Actively. It is being updated, spoilers, by the fourth wall, who is also the I erased it. Also the Dokubi King, who is also the ghostwriter, kind of Han Soo-young Beta. Let's switch that around. And so, Kim Do-sha and the gang, they fight the sun. But that fight was so costly and painful that it summoned a giant outer god, which then Kim Do-sha then dive-bombed into and died. But I lied. He was saved by an outer god who took him into the future, technically into the past, to kill a certain funny red guy. And then 3 years pass. You've already seen this. 3 years pass. Right here. Comes back. He comes back and is drugged because his teammates are like, we don't want to lose you again. Stay in this hospital room forever, and so we can just keep an eye on you. They would soon come to regret saying this. I'll mark that. So Kim Doksha decides, because he still has to do the scenarios, then he fights the Greek gods in Giggle Machina, and then releases the Titans, and then is also now canonically the heir and son of Hades, the Greek god. I know, I'm skipping a lot of plot for the timeline's sake. And so after this, the world begins to end. I feel like I'm missing something, but I don't think so. The world begins to end, and a war between the good and evil happens, where it is just good and evil, they fight each other. This is the second war, and then that's just it. And so Kim Doksha decides to, instead of fighting on either side, he picks neither, and decides to throw the scales so heavily, because half his group is split. Half his group is good, half of his group is evil. And so he decides the evil group will fight the good will fight the evil, and it'll counterbalance itself. No one wins. Boom. This causes shit to get fucked very fast. And this causes so much disaster that the Apocalypse Dragon appears, which in its first attack wipes out a fourth of the constellations, as in a fourth of the stars in the sky. It's just first attack. So in order to fight this monstrous being, Kim Doksha causes so much more chaos that it brings an outer wrong marker color. Brings an outer god, and they fight each other, the Apocalypse Dragon and the outer god. So they're fighting, and then Kim Doksha gets caught up in it, but is saved by another outer god, the same one who sent him back in time. This outer god is called Secretive Plotter. Now the Secretive Plotter, in case you were curious, where did all the memories, the experiences go of the 1,864 timelines? I mean, we only have 4 that the main character or the protagonist remembers, Yuji Nuke remembers. Where did all the rest go? Well, they formed into their own being, the Secretive Plotter. So the Secretive Plotter is Yuji Nuke, and his, I don't fucking know. and then Kim Doksha goes and he meets a bunch of small Yuji Nukes, and then goes and cosplays as the fucking Adventure to the West, as fucking Son Goku for a bit, in order to get a train ticket to go meet the funny oldest dreamer. I think turned into a surfboard and rode by Yuji Nuke. Here, let me draw this real quick. It gets rode like a surfboard, and then they go, and then they have to go fight the fourth wall, which they get into because they have the keys of the walls, which are like the fourth wall is one of the keys. There's other various walls. A wall that separates good and evil is one of them that they've just been collecting throughout the story. They plug into the wall and whatever, and then they get fucked up by another wall, and also Kim Doksha's dad's there, as in the Dokubi King, because he's trying to just fuck him up mentally. They fight, blah blah blah. They go into the wall. Kim Doksha meets his past self. Oops, all the way back around to here. Who tries to kill himself, but no, the oldest dreamer appears, and he goes to help, and he kidnaps the oldest dreamer, and then they leave. Never see them again. And now all Kim Doksha's friends, they're chilling. They're on a train. They've completed the game. There's no more scenarios. They're done. And so they're all getting off the train. And then it's Kim Doksha's turn to get off the train. And he does. Surprisingly, he gets off the train. And then his other half doesn't get off the train, because he developed because now he's an author. He developed the author trait I talked about up here. Nope, I talked about on the other side of the board, where he splits off into two versions, 49% and 51%. Say those numbers to any Mr. Reader fans, and they break down in tears. Trust me. So, 49% Kimdoksha Beta, goes and is along, chills with his friends, and then just like he's just chilling. 51% is stuck on the train, having to view and watch all 1,864 timelines. Because if he doesn't, they don't exist. Because now there's no oldest streamer anymore. So he takes up that mantle and becomes a new oldest streamer. So these two, Yujo Nuke and Han Soo-young, and then the rest of the group, decide to all of them go back in time. They all regress. So now technically we are on timeline 1,865. Where the fuck? The two of them chill. They do their own thing. The red marker's getting more and more fucked up. And then Kimdoksha, he's technically here because he reverted as well. The Kimdoksha Beta, the 49%, he reverts and then fucking dies because the scenarios were over. That the magic, all that stuff is gone now. It's back to basic Earth. So 49% of a person can't exist on its own. That's also why they're going back in time. Sorry, I didn't mention that. They complete all the stuff. They get all 4 keys, and they get back onto the train. Kimdoksha during this time goes, Kimdoksha Prime, 51%, goes back in time to the 0th turn, and fucks with the main guy. Fucks with Yujo Nuke for a bit. And I explained that in the very beginning. And now, because Kimdoksha has been expending a lot of power, fucking with the timeline, especially the third one, and also reverting Yujo Nuke, he's kind of he's just dying. He's very weak. And so, their entire friend group on this train, they're going up, they're gonna go grab him. Then the 4th wall appears and says, no, fuck you, blocks them, and then scatters Kimdoksha to the fucking stars. So now, what do? They complete the world, but magic is still within this world. The system is still existing. Yujo Nuke, I don't have a fucking red marker anymore. He becomes a terrorist. And he builds a rocket ship with Han Soo-young. And Han Soo-young writes Ways of Survival. And then she writes Omniscient Reader, the book we're reading. And she sends copies to Yujo Nuke, sends them out, and one by one, Yujo Nuke is giving out copies of the book to each timeline. So we have one of those copies. We canonically are part of the story. And so every timeline has a Kimdoksha. And as long as every timeline's Kimdoksha reads the story, they're technically the oldest streamer. And so then we get to the end, where all of them go into his hospital room, and it ends, and we don't know what happened. Up to interpretation how the story ends, because that was the epilogue. Because technically the story ended when Kimdoksha vaporized himself into 2 different beings. So yeah, that was the timeline. It only took technically 4 different boards, like 5 timelines that I talked about, and running down the story to complete nothingness. I didn't even talk about half the characters. I only have 4 colors. Yeah, this is the timeline that I keep finding online, this fucking circle. Also, you may have noticed that some of the outer gods up there exist outside of the universe, outside of the timelines. Now, this book is really fucked and very complicated, and it is like there's some point where Yuji turns into a woman and fights crime, and Kim Dok's like, man, that person's really attractive, and it's never brought up again, ever again. And to the point where I didn't even think that was supposed to be Yuji. I thought it was supposed to be some random character, and Kim Dok was fucking having like a senile moment.